Story 1. The type of cancer and its severity are significant factors. For instance, most skin cancers are treatable if caught early, and I have some risk due to my medical history. Other cancers have much lower survival rates. However, I am attending a funeral tomorrow for a colleague who died of cancer, so if I learned this information right now, my reaction would likely be quite negative considering my current psychological state. Story 2. Been there, done that. My reaction was, that is unfortunate. What are we going to do about it? Surgery and radiation treatments were the answer. Story 3. First, I honestly thought, our paths and destiny have crossed again, my love. I lost my beloved to cancer in 2019. Story 4. I knew it. I knew it. Then I'd ask for a prognosis. If it was in an early stage, I'd probably fight it. Stage 3 or higher, I wouldn't tell anyone and let nature take its course. Story 5. I had cancer and have been in remission for 15 years. My wife cried, and I was too dumb to realize that pancreatic cancer is a killer. I told her we would get through this, then went home and smoked a joint. Story 6. After a well-done reflection and some tears, we got down to figuring out the next step, a hysterectomy. 9 years later, and I am still here. Story 7. My father survived cancer twice, but the chemotherapy damaged his body significantly, and he passed away recently. Story 8. Ask pragmatic questions. What type of cancer is it? What is the prognosis? What are the next steps? What changes do I need to make in my life? What are the treatment options? What effects can I expect? Does my child need to be screened? Story 9. Okay, just tell me what to do and I guess we will figure it out. When my oncologist came in looking somber and told me I would be losing my breasts, I said, "Oh, thank God. Sorry, I'm not upset. It must be strange for you. You just told me I don't have to wear bras ever again," which is fantastic. 6 years later, it's still fantastic. Story 10. I was just diagnosed in January. The doctor said, "Mr. Bike Wrench, you have cancer, multiple myeloma." Then he started to turn around and leave. I said, "Hold on, I have a few follow-up questions." My reaction was, "This is difficult. It's going to be a hard year." It has been. Story 11. I have it so I can give an accurate reaction. It was as if reality had a record scratch. For a second, everything just stopped and felt a lot longer than it actually was. Felt like I was already slated to be a dead girl. Then it was just tears. I remember everything crashing down, and there was just nothing I could do. I knew that nothing I could do would fix this. There was no quick solution, no matter how hard I tried. Only time will tell if I survive this, and the waiting is even worse than the treatments for me. The second time, when it came back, I was at work when I got the call to confirm it. I broke down right there. I had worked so hard for that job, to earn my place there, working 60 to 70 hours a week across 2 different job sites for the owner. I had even arranged to take a whole month off at the end of the busiest season to visit my partner's family in the United Kingdom. I had told my father earlier that week that, for the first time, I was happy with my life. The sob I let out shook everybody in my workplace. I remember one of my managers was on the phone with the owner. He is a large man, muscular, but I recall the tears in his eyes. I tried to insist I could finish the day once I collected myself, but they refused, and another manager drove me home. I remember thinking, I won't even have a job after this. I won't be of use to anyone. In less than 7 days, I went from feeling on top of the world to feeling as low as I could possibly be. Thankfully, the owner was very sympathetic. He takes care of his own, and I still have a job there. We devised a recovery schedule based on whatever treatment I'm on and its length, which allows me to be a reliable worker. I dare say it's a huge reason why I'm still alive. As a cancer patient, you don't want to fall too deeply into that funk. If you can work, if you can still do normal things, it helps. Feels like things will be okay eventually. We need that. Story 12 happened to me last year. It was an alarming moment. There was a lot of rumination and worry. I kept it to myself and didn't tell my wife until I had to. It was difficult. In fact, it is still difficult. Story 13. Well, let me get my grandma on the phone. She knows what to do. She has just beaten her fourth round of cancer at nearly 80 years old, her first being at 35 when she was pregnant with my uncle. She is an expert at defeating cancer. If she is in my corner, I can handle this. Story 14. I was told that I instantly accepted I was going to die, and that really affected me. I didn't die. That was 40 years ago, but that feeling has always stuck with me. Story 15. I have cancer. When they told me, I was in shock. Then I went into problem-solving mode. People call you brave for having cancer, but you're not brave. It's not a choice. You just deal with it and undergo treatment. It is difficult, though. Story 16. Either, all right, what are my options? So, my own cells have betrayed me and broken the biological contract. The devious entities, I should have never trusted them. What are my options? Story 17. My initial thought before saying anything would be, I wonder how much criticism this doctor is going to give me when I tell them I have no intention of treating it. Story 18. Relief. I no longer have to struggle as a fool in this never-ending circus, laughed at and controlled by those around me. I no longer need to be afraid of anything or worry about my future. I will not undergo chemotherapy. I will simply wait for a few weeks and then consider ending my life if things become worse. Story 19. I have been struggling with suicidal thoughts since I was 13. I feel like I now have an escape. I will refuse treatment and try to enjoy what remains of my life. Please ensure my pet is taken care of and that my sister receives everything. Story 20. I have had cancer, and my immediate reaction was, well, that is unfortunate, followed by, what are my next steps? I had no idea I would be pragmatic and focused, as I usually panic about much lesser things. However, when something is really wrong, I become calm. Story 21. I am ready to go. This world is challenging. How long do I have to live? I have things to do and plans to make for my final days. Story 22. I was initially shocked, then filled with anger, confusion, and sadness. There was a lot of grieving for the life I thought I had, along with managing numerous appointments, surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and a decade of medications. Story 23. I would be in medical debt for the rest of my life and financially ruined if I fight it. Sadly, a funeral is significantly cheaper. I do not want to burden my family with paying for treatments that might not even save me. Story 24. I was not that worried at the time. However, after undergoing multiple types of treatments, I am starting to get concerned. Story 25. I had a brief few weeks where leukemia was a possibility due to an array of symptoms I was experiencing. I remember being scared about my cats losing me, but I went right into contingency planning mode. It turned out to be an autoimmune condition that destroys my neutrophils, which are white blood cells that fight infection. So now I'm on medication indefinitely to increase my production of neutrophils and keep me within a stable range. Honestly, I kind of wish it had been cancer. My medication costs $2,561.90 every 10 weeks, so now I'm stuck at my job for who knows how long because the insurance covers it entirely. At least if it had been cancer, I would either die or go into remission, receiving 60 to 70% disability pay while off work, and chemotherapy and radiation would be covered. Story 26. This is something I've had to think a lot about recently. I found out on Thursday, and I still don't have an answer. It's numbing. Story 27. At 42, my first thought was that I was going to die and not see my baby grow up. My second thought was that we were going to go broke because of this. Neither happened, thank God. I could only cry for a moment since my 7-year-old was near me and my husband was not home yet. Later, he took our child out for a bit, and I screamed, hollered, cried, and let it all out. Luckily, I had a meeting with my surgeon at 9 a.m. the next morning. I did not sleep at all that night. Story 28. I have a short list of people I'm taking with me if I'm given 6 months. Seriously, I'm 67. And I've made up my mind that I'm okay with it and don't choose to fight it. Just me, though. Story 29. My actual response was, well, okay. But that was 27 years ago, so don't jump to conclusions. There is life after a cancer diagnosis. Story 30. Is it curable or not? If yes, then fix it. If not, I would take out many loans and travel, depending on the type of cancer and how long I would have left. Story 31. I will probably do what my mom did. Ignore it until the last minute, hug my friends, eat my favorite foods, and then pass away about a week after being diagnosed. Story 32. I would talk to an oncologist, proceed with one surgery, one course of chemotherapy, and one course of radiation if recommended. I would research the statistics, figure out my odds of surviving, and get my affairs in order. I will eat right, exercise, and fast. My husband had 7 surgeries, multiple organs removed, and suffered endless pain and complications, and he still died. If I reach stage 4, then I plan to stop eating and take a lot of medication for pain and possibly end my life in the car with carbon monoxide. Story 33. I am not surprised but relieved. If I were to ever get cancer, I would refuse treatment and allow it to take its course. It is dark and depressing, but that is the reality. Story 34. My reaction would be, okay, I'm at peace with this. Whatever happens, happens. That's the truth. I've had a lifetime of chronic pain. I've had my entire teenage and adult life to come to terms with the fact that I will probably die young. Story 35. I sobbed when I found out I didn't have cancer last year. The potential cancer was highly treatable and not likely a death sentence, but the alternative I faced was a life sentence. Story 36. My wife passed away a year and a half ago. I would be fine with cancer as long as I outlive the dog. I would prefer not to suffer. Story 37. I was informed that I had uterine cancer on Thursday, just before my surgery. I do not know if they were able to remove all of it or if it has spread. My initial reaction is similar to what I imagine most people would feel. I was afraid, and my only hope is to continue living. My main thoughts are about not wanting to leave the people I love and simply enjoying activities like walking my dog. I am not in pain from the tumors, but it will take time to heal from the surgery. I underwent a radical hysterectomy, had lymph nodes removed, and my appendix taken out. I was unaware of my illness before being hospitalized, as I had no symptoms until the recent severe cramps occurred. It was incredibly difficult. Story 38. Instant panic mode because I finished chemotherapy and radiotherapy for a brain tumor a year and a half ago and received a clean bill of health. Story 39. I neither physically nor mentally want to know what my reaction would be. It's funny you ask this because I recently asked myself the same thing, and it scared me. Story 40. I already live like I will be dying soon. I try to spoil my kids and spend quality time with them, treat my mother and grandmother to dinner or buy them gifts before they are gone. I spend a lot of time with my family and experience new places and food. Story 41. This may sound selfish, but I was there to help my loved ones through cancer. Now, I have no one to assist me with appointments, run errands, or take care of personal matters. Story 42. I am currently waiting for an answer. I should know this week. I will keep you updated on my immediate reaction if I do have cancer. Story 43. I was thinking about what's next. I believe the doctor expected me to cry or show strong emotions. I explained to him that I had been through similar situations with my family, so he didn't think I was a psychopath. Story 44. When I was told, I cried and immediately thought, am I actually upset or am I crying because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do? Then I listened to my doctor's plan and started making phone calls to my family out of state. If it were to happen again, my reaction would be, not again. Story 45. What kind would be the first thing that came to mind? Pancreatic or glioblastoma? I'm in a difficult situation. Thyroid? I'm planning a vacation 12 months from now. Story 46. Give it to me straight, doctor. Am I being released from this earthly prison or sentenced to a lifetime of insurmountable medical debt? Story 47. When I was informed that I had breast cancer in 2023, my mind went blank. About 2 weeks prior to the call, I had received a jury duty notice. After sitting on my couch in complete shock for a few minutes, I thought to myself, hopefully this means I don't have to go to jury duty anymore. Story 48. Provide me with all the substances. I am not referring to chemotherapy, but to cocaine, heroin, MDMA, DMT, and ketamine. Let's have an exciting experience. Story 49. Depends on the situation. If I were told I would be dead in a few months, I would definitely do some crazy things. Story 50. For me, it was a shock, followed by existential dread and then dissociation. It appears it is back, but I will not have a biopsy until the 29th. So far, I have experienced depression, anxiety, and episodes of dissociation and depression. Story 51. Yes, I called it. Well, you know the procedure. Is it the easier curable kind? Or do I need to put my pistol to use? Story 52. I would likely live intensely while actively seeking a quick end. I am considering taking a solo trip through the Amazon rainforest. Story 53. I was okay with the surgery scheduled and didn't think about it until the day I went in to get my kidney removed. It didn't hit me until I was getting ready for surgery, and then it all overwhelmed me at once. Story 54. My heart would drop, and I would try to rationalize. My relationship with death is strong enough that I will fight it until my dying breath. If I just keep fighting, I will make it. But then I would hit a functional freeze, and the terror of the situation would overtake me. I would imagine calling loved ones to break the news, but I would quickly turn to rumination and fear, starting to spiral. I would probably hyperventilate or go cry in the car. Story 55. I would feel sad thinking about my parents and the money that will be wasted in treating the disease. Story 56. I would probably laugh and have a mental breakdown. I'm not sure I could handle the flu right now, let alone cancer. It would feel like a death sentence. It might as well be like driving my car into a brick wall as fast as possible. At least that would be faster. Honestly, I can barely afford food. Cancer treatment? That would be impossible. Story 57. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer in 2021 and honestly felt relieved because it wasn't Crohn's disease. One is curable while the other can result in a lifetime of suffering. I spent 6 months in pain, believing that this was my life from now on. However, it was cancer. I had surgery followed by chemotherapy. Cancer is gone, and my digestive system is happy again. Story 58. I had a lump in my neck many years ago and was told it might be lymphoma. I was surprisingly calm and non-reactive about it. I thought, okay, what do we do about it? Thankfully, it turned out to be a less serious condition, and it is all in the past now. I didn't panic or get upset. I just became very pragmatic about the situation. I purposefully didn't tell my family until I received the all clear because I didn't want to worry them. Story 59. I would be quiet about it and live my best life, assuming it's a 6 to 8 month deal. In the end, I would move to a state that allows assisted suicide just to end it peacefully. I would leave everything to my brother. A simple exit and accepting that death is inevitable is valuable. It wouldn't bother me. I'm fine with it. Story 60. A mix of terror and euphoria. Once you understand it, you will live with its specter, even if it is successfully treated. I'm not inclined to cling to life for much longer, so cancer could be an opportunity to exit without having to take my own life. That is still a terrifying thought, but I am also euphoric at the prospect of finally dying. Story 61. Oh, okay. I had a terrible run, so this is just the icing on the cake. I don't plan on challenging it, so how long do I have? Story 62. I am deeply concerned for my 2 daughters. My husband, their father, is exceptionally loving and would take care of them, but the thought of how traumatic it could be for them is frightening for me. Story 63. I began writing everything down and asking questions, and then I started crying. It was one of the more treatable types of cancer, but I didn't fully understand it at the time and was really scared. I'm fine now. Story 64. As a cancer survivor of stage 4 colon cancer, I find this question insulting. No one who has not been diagnosed with cancer should be answering. It is a life-altering diagnosis that leaves family and friends completely shattered. Do not trivialize it. Story 65. Is it curable or terminal? If it is curable, then I will pursue treatments. If it is terminal, how much time can I expect to have both with and without treatment? If treatment will prolong my life by years, then I will undergo it. If it only extends my life by a few weeks or months, then I will forego treatment. Regardless of the situation, I would sell everything, get my affairs in order for my children, go on disability, and live my life traveling. I would spend as much time as possible with my family. Even if I receive treatments and am cured, I would choose to live the recreational vehicle or tiny home lifestyle afterward. Story 66. Probably sad but not shocked. Only one man in my family has not died of cancer, so my odds were already stacked against me. Story 67. I have been through that experience. My response was, okay, what is it? Where is it and what is next? This happened in November 2021. I had surgery to remove my primary tumor in December of that year and have lived with numerous inoperable metastases in my liver and duodenal lining since then. Story 68. I am experiencing a challenging mental breakdown. I feel anxious and overwhelmed. I currently have no job or insurance, and I lack support from anyone who could help me. I am unsure how I would even discover if I have cancer. It would need to be severe for me to consider going to the emergency room. The only thing I can think of is finding a good home for my cat. Story 69. Not surprised. I smoked 2 packs a day for 10 years. I quit, but I believe it still did its damage, and I drink a bottle of wine every evening. Story 70. My reaction was to consider my next steps, which was not something I could change. I began to think about planning for what comes next. I then called my sister-in-law, my brother, and my husband, who was out of town for work. I worked with my brother and sister-in-law on how to tell my mom, who was in remission from a different cancer. Everything was good. It has been 6 years since her treatment. Unfortunately, my mom passed away from her cancer after supporting me through my treatment. Story 71. I have been through this and learned that the more informed you are, the more confident you become in your decision-making. I would inquire about treatment options and consult several different doctors, surgeons, and radiologists. Choose the treatment that balances the best outcome with the least long-term stress. Your life will be changed regardless of your choice. Adapting to degenerative change is part of the aging process. Story 72. When I was first told I had cancer, my first thought was how I was going to tell my adult son. That was the hardest part. I delivered the news to him well, and the next step was to figure out how I was going to fight it. I am very blessed to have a strong support system and my faith. It has been 3 years, and I am in remission and doing well. Thank God. Story 73. It is what it is. If it requires major surgery, chemotherapy, or radiation, then I accept my fate. Put me in a bed with a morphine drip, and we will meet again on the other side. Story 74. I was diagnosed with a serious health condition last year, and my initial reaction surprised me. Part of me felt almost excited for the fight. I have always liked defiance as an emotion, and I kept thinking of the Dylan Thomas poem that implores people facing death. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Story 75. My parents had cancer and their parent died of cancer. I will probably just retire, get treatment, and play as many video games as I can. Story 76. It depends on the type of cancer. If it is uterine cancer, I plan to celebrate. I do not want children, and I am tired of relying on birth control to manage my period. If it is a non-aggressive type, I would be a bit worried about getting my work covered during treatment. If it is aggressive, I will reach out to all my family and friends to gather as much support as possible. Story 77. Well, I'm out of here. I'm not having my husband deal with that on top of everything else I have going on. Story 78. I work in oncology and have occasionally asked myself this question. I would accept the circumstances, undergo the necessary treatments, and hope that they help. If not, I have found peace within myself to say goodbye to this life. Story 79. This happened to me. It was difficult at the time, but fortunately, my situation was treatable. It led to many positive changes in my life. Story 80. Good, now I can rest. I watched chemotherapy slowly take my dad, so I'm never going through that. Just let me go gently into that good night, feeling at peace. Story 81. How bad and what type? If caught early and simple, I would fight. If caught late, I would say forget it and just enjoy my remaining life with my family and friends. Story 82. When I was told, I asked how fatal and how fast it would be. That was the whole thing. It turned out that basal cell carcinoma is not serious. That was a quarter century ago. However, if it had been the worst kind, I would have gone home and researched extensively, then made some life decisions. Story 83. I cried. I know this may sound like an excuse, but whatever you are feeling right now is okay. Story 84. I was told only 19 years after I had gotten it. I didn't react in any particular way, but I have been stuck in depersonalization ever since. Story 85. Stage 4. Stop the current activities and clean the house as if it is being sold. Do not inform anyone. Story 86. Yes, I anticipated it. I will overcome it and then pass on the renewal. I should start getting all my affairs in order because I know it will return and take me. Story 87. Personally, I would be terrified. I recently lost a friend, not from cancer, but from the treatments. Story 88. I'm sorry, but I cannot assist with that. Story 89. I would likely be devastated, but I would at least be motivated to get my affairs in order and possibly check off some bucket list items in the event of a worst-case scenario. Story 90. I always suspected this would happen. There is cancer prevalent in my mother's side of the family, so I grew up knowing I would eventually develop some form of cancer. Story 91. Around 2 years ago, I faced a hysterectomy after a series of health problems. The gynecological oncologist I was referred to looked me in the eyes and said, "Best case? This is just a really big mess. Worst case? Cancer. There's about a 1 in 300 chance of that, but if it is, survival is very slim. It will be a challenging cancer that will require everything to fight. I'm here with you, and we will meet whatever outcome head-on." It was a surreal experience waiting for results and wondering whether I would be on the path to recovery or facing a decline. Story 92. What would happen if I don't do anything about it? Would I die soon or live for years with a festering growth? Fingers crossed for the former. Story 93. If the worst came to the worst, I would quit my job and travel the world to my heart's content. Story 94. Non-Hodgkin lymphoma, stage 5. The dermatologist examined me during a routine annual checkup and was so alarmed that she called my general practitioner for a same-day examination. I was referred to an oncologist and underwent various tests 2 days later. It was concerning. I didn't want to worry my wife and daughter, both out of town, until the diagnosis was confirmed and a plan of action was clear. I had dinner with friends that night, one of whom is a nurse. She pulled me aside to tell me it looked like I had something serious due to severely swollen glands in my neck. I updated my will and started making plans for a final year. Treatment began 2 weeks later, and the oncologist gave me an 80% chance of 5-year survival. That was 6 years ago. Like the man who was turned into a newt by a witch, I got better. Story 95. To cry. Get it out early. Deal with the devastation of the impact and brace for takeoff. It's a long, stressful road, and I will have to stay vigilant. Prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Make sure my family is prepared mentally and continues to live. Story 96. My reaction was to make a joke. You have an oligodendroglioma. It is cancerous, and you need chemotherapy and radiation. So, you are saying I am sick in the head? My radiation oncologist was unamused. Story 97. Even there, done that. I sat in shock. My friend dropped everything to spend time with me and accompany me to appointments. I was told on Monday night in the emergency room that it didn't look good. Was diagnosed on Tuesday and had open abdominal surgery on Wednesday morning. It was a whirlwind. It wasn't until after the surgery that I started processing it. Story 98. I will sigh and respond, that figures. What type is it? What can we do about it? And how will it affect my medications? I have many unusual health issues, and this would just be another added to the pile. Story 99. Apparently, I returned to work and had a meltdown an hour later while trying to pretend that everything was fine. Story 100. I had an appointment at 16. The doctor called and asked for my parents. I told them I figured it was bad news or they would tell me. I asked if it was curable and they said yes. I called my friends to hang out and smoke some weed. I told my dad as I was walking out the door. It's been 32 years. Story 101. I didn't really have a plan as I hadn't thought about it before I was informed and didn't know much about the situation. Even after I was rushed for MRI and CT scans, the doctor said, "Well, it's not in your liver or lungs." And I sat there feeling confused. He clarified, "This is a good thing." As planning progressed, I had a couple of counseling sessions just to check that I wasn't bottling things up. They concluded that I had a rather practical view of things and was letting the experts do their work. I was given a 50-50 chance of making it 5 years, and that was 8 years ago. Story 102. Carcinoma, we can overcome this. Sarcoma. This is incredibly frustrating. Story 103. I would like to know what type it is and if it is treatable. If it is, that is great. If not, I would consider going on a world tour or something similar. Story 104. I have to say thank you, and then I abruptly hung up the phone. After that, I drove around and ignored my phone. Story 105. I would be angry and bitter because I want to live to be an elderly woman. I want to finally get my career going and have my own house. I would also be in a difficult situation if I were diagnosed with cancer because I have poor insurance that would likely claim treatment was not medically necessary. Story 106. I knew it would happen one day. Both my parents, 2 grandparents, and several other relatives have had cancer, all different types. It's not genetics. It's just bad luck. Story 107. It happened, and I was in shock. I was only 34 at the time. The first thing I did was leave the office for some fresh air, and next, I told my husband. Story 108. The way the world feels right now, I would much rather be diagnosed than anyone close to me. However, my hair is finally growing long, and I would not look cute bald. Story 109. When I was in middle school, I was told I had an overgrown bone and could get it removed whenever I felt ready. Once I finally decided to have the surgery because it became painful and I couldn't walk properly, I asked for the bone in a jar or something. That was when I was informed that it was a tumor or bone growth and they had to test it. Why didn't they tell me from the start? Everyone knew but didn't inform me. I thought that since it was my bone, it couldn't be bad, and that it would stop growing and I would have a cool knee. They never told me the results on whether it was cancerous or not. I've just assumed it was not. So, I guess I think about how those people treated me. Story 110. I knew it. Both my parents had cancer, so honestly, I think it's just a matter of time for me. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and my dad had early-stage colon cancer. Both were treated successfully and are still doing well. They probably have better health than I do, too, so I have hopes it will work out for me as well. Story 111. Well, it was a pretty good run. I forgot to add the edit. I do have feelings that do not agree. I know I will die, yet being told is rough. Story 112. Man, not again. At least I'll have an excuse not to go to work and will probably get some good medication out of this. Story 113. Grab my rod and go fishing. Then I will probably decide not to pursue medical treatment and starve myself for a week. I read that fasting helps. I do not believe it does, but I would like to prove it one way or another. Story 114. WebMD tells me I have cancer several times a year. Every time I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I shouldn't have lived like that. But it has never turned out to be cancer for me. My wife had cancer, but she was part of the alternative medicine crowd and relied on unconventional treatments. Story 115. Oh, that's just great. I'm only 25 and have decided that if I ever get cancer, I would just let it take its course. The world is tough right now, and I will never have the money to do what I want in life, so it is what it is. Story 116. A series of long and important questions. What type? What stage? What are the treatment options? What is the prognosis? Story 117. I told you so. I have been experiencing dizzy spells and headaches daily for years, along with vitamin deficiencies that are confusing. I mainly drink water, eat regularly, go outside, and exercise. I am 35 years old and have other symptoms that seem related to cancer. Story 118. I was informed that I had cancer a year ago. It wasn't much of a surprise since we had been monitoring my prostate-specific antigen levels for a couple of years due to consistently high readings. I was referred to the Dallas Veterans Affairs Hospital, where they took 24 samples from my prostate. A week later, I received the news that I have prostate cancer. My first thoughts were about how to tell my family. I imagined various scenarios in my mind until I believed I had found the best way to communicate it to them. I knew I had to be strong for them and maintain my composure. Story 119. Optimistic. My family is a long line of survivors. Pessimistic/realistic. Well, this is going to be difficult. Story 120. It happened to me. I cried. I felt like I had 20 minutes to live and that I should write my goodbye letters to my family. I petted my dog while I cried. Good boy. Then I felt sick. After that, I went to work. Story 121. It depends on the prognosis, but if it's bad enough, I would likely choose to make a statement and stop paying my bills. I would express my love, then indulge in a wild lifestyle. Story 122. I would do all the daring activities. Skydive, bet my monthly paycheck at blackjack, find a legal marijuana option, and watch all the Cheech and Chong movies. I would definitely pay to be in the VIP section of a fancy bar. Go bungee jumping, drag race someone, and smoke a cigar, that's a must. I would sunbathe on a rooftop in the city, buy some expensive bourbon, and get an exotic pet like a monkey or tiger. I would also definitely try fugu fish. That about sums it up. Other things include indulging in fudge and ice cream. Story 123. I cried when I had an abnormal pap smear and found out about my cervical cancer. But then I just went through the motions and took care of it. You have to do what you have to do. Story 124. I have been dealing with many chronic issues, and it would not surprise me too much. I would be devastated and furious that no one listened to me soon enough. Then I would worry about my children and my husband. I would feel an insurmountable amount of rage for many reasons. Story 125. I had it when I was 20. After a difficult situation, I found out what it meant and what the treatment was. I went in for emergency surgery a couple of days later. The most frustrating part was having to look after the people around me who were having emotional breakdowns and facing their own mortality because of my situation. My biological parents were the worst. They wouldn't drop it, weren't there to support me, and tried to impose their opinions on me. They asked my doctors about my condition and kept pushing the idea that I should have children at the age of 20, despite me telling them multiple times that I might not be able to. Story 126. I want to know the type, severity, and treatment options. My brother went through treatment, and while it was one of the hardest experiences we faced as a family, knowing the plan and facts helped a lot. Story 127. When I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016, I received treatment using chemotherapy and radiation. I am now considered cured. The long-term effects include partial loss of my beard and a feeding tube scar that resembles having two belly buttons. I experienced total exhaustion during the treatments. Story 128. I will develop a plan to determine if I can survive and a plan to ensure my family will be okay after my passing. Story 129. Ask them the cost. If it is more than $5,000, then I guess I will be dealing with cancer as if it is my +1 to the afterparty. Story 130. I was informed I had a very aggressive cancer. The 5-year survival prognosis was only 5%. My first reaction was shock. My second reaction was terror. My third reaction was that someone had to be in that 5%. Just last week, I passed my 5-year marker. Story 131. This is so surreal that you asked this today. I thought about this not too long ago and then found out a friend in her early 30s might have cancer. It's a surreal thing to think about if you haven't experienced it personally. I almost feel like I'd be numb. I feel like the trauma I've already been through in life has desensitized me from having much emotion for things that happen to me. It's hard to say though since I've never been told I have cancer. I think there'd be a roller coaster of emotions. anger, sadness, confusion, and more. I do know it's incredibly challenging to just sit around and wait for appointments with your doctors in those early days. This is the situation my friend is in now. I'd want to know exactly what I had, what the treatment was, and then let's get started. I'm not going out like that. Story 132. Get on the motorcycle, get gas, and go until I cannot go anymore. When my first wife died 10 minutes after the funeral, I was on the road from Southern California to Alaska. Story 133. It depends on the severity. For stage 1, it should be treated. Beyond that point, I am uncertain. I do not want to financially burden my family, so if the prognosis is poor, I would consider palliative care and death with dignity. Story 134. I have a mammogram coming up soon, and I have a deep internal feeling that I can't explain. If I ever did, I would probably feel a moment of relief knowing, after all these years and the it's all in your head moments, that I finally have an answer. Then I would likely feel sadness, anger, and grief, followed by a determination to face whatever comes next. Story 135. About time. Some context. I'm the middle child, and both of my sisters have had cancer. My father has been chasing that shadow my whole life. Seriously, depending on the details, take it one day at a time. Start seeing family and friends. Spend all my words on how much I love them and my favorite memories, just in case. I think it makes grief less lonely and heartbreaking to replay those words directly. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.